Hello, everyone. My name is Amelie Shawad. I run the socials for Broken Spoke Film House. Today, I am with Dan Rathke, who is the director and one of the writers for the upcoming short film Wake Up Dolores. How are you doing today, Dan?
Doing good, doing really good. Been looking forward to this for quite some time. Now that we're done with the project itself and it's out in the film festival circuit, so it's a very exciting time. Perfect
Yes,
timing, as you say.
yes, very exciting. And today he's going to be answering some questions for us about the film.
Yes.
So, first question for you, Dan. What inspired the story and how did it evolve from idea to screen?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome question. I would say primarily because there's a few things as that goes into it. So one in particular, the story itself was sort of built on the factor of nightmares and things that can, come from it and how it feels real and so on and so forth. And just some background as a kid, I had these really bad night terrors growing up and everything. And so it's always kind of stuck with me as far as I'm, wanting to create a story that sort of centers around this. And what's interesting then, fast forward to, I would say 2023 in January, where we were watching the sort of a rough cut of Who Invited the Robots. And this was a story that, again, like going back to, I wanted to do. And then while watching it, I was thinking, okay, originally with Who Invited the Robots, we were just going to make it as a one-time project. But then watching the way the sort of the story unfolded, that's when things started turning where, okay, so actually we can do this, but we're going to change the format for this next project that ties into robots. And instead, it's going to be a prequel, but not the cliche prequel, where it's like generic or like repeatable jokes and stuff. So now it becomes more of a sort of its dark sort of story, and we'll center it around Dolores. Just because the way Juliet, who did a fantastic job playing this character, more playing that quiet leader style and everything. So I felt like if with that type of persona, we can do a little bit of a darker backstory. And so that sort of then evolved, or sort of, I want to say, then grew or mutated, whichever how you want to frame this, into an actual background story of Dolores, where you find out, where she comes from and more so her environment and how that sort of shaped her and everything. And then you see these other supporting characters like Ava, who's also referenced in Who Invited the Robots. And then you also have another sister. And this all sort of just kind of grew into this like sort of dark, but also still has its comedic moments
Mhm.
storyline that now is today say pretty, I would say overall it's pretty exciting project. I don't want to give away too much though. Bad
It's
habit of
hard.
doing
It's hard not to give away too
it.
much. Yeah, I thought when I watched Who Invited the Robots, Dolores, Juliet's character was so interesting to me. And she wasn't like the main character in that one,
Mhm.
but I was so intrigued and I really wanted to find out more about her. And so then the fact that Wake Up Dolores is now focused on her and her backstory and how she got to where she is in Who Invited the Robots is so cool. And I'm really excited to see how the audience reacts to that. It's going to
Oh
be,
yeah, for sure. There's no doubt. There's no
oh,
doubt. Like you'll see a very much a different side, but in a good way. But
uh-huh.
even too, it kind of helps support how that is such a key character in Who Invited the Robots. But like you said, she wasn't the main one, but she was a driver, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. There was something,
Little did Adam know.
yeah, something a little off about her the whole time. And I just
Right.
loved it. I loved it. Okay. My next question is, what films, directors, or art inspired your approach to Wake Up Dolores?
Yeah. So there's a pretty good solid list here. Could get a little lengthy, but I would say it's some of the top ones that come to mind, especially is Ex Machina. I've always been infatuated as far as more so the factor of, you know, synthetics, AI, robots, however you want to frame it. The factor of if, let's say, we take the guardrails off and we put them into a situation of, you know, having hopes and sort of developing in their own manner. Not they're not programmed. They're your more of sort of development and everything as a individual, one might say, and then how they interact and everything. And then with that too is they're going to have hopes and dreams. And so with a character like Ava in Ex Machina, that's where you sort of find like, from her dialogue and everything. And of course, there's, Caleb and Nathan and so on and so forth, which I found their, interactions great. But I felt always connected to that movie itself ever since when I first saw it. The other part too, as well, is the factor of the how we shaped the nightmares and everything, and using like the different colors. I'm huge fan as far as of Nightmare on Elm Street, especially Dream Warriors. Was always a fan of that as a kid, but also it was also the scariest movie franchise for me as a kid. That's kind of why I had night terrors, as I mentioned before, probably. But that was a huge factor as far as like I love the different, like how we can kind of take what would be reality in the way it feels and looks, and then extrapolate that, and then like exaggerate it more in this nightmare world. And so that's kind of where we really wanted to emphasize that with when Dolores and her nightmares and everything, they have this own certain look and colors and everything that kind of give it that more immersive feel. I think the other ones, especially too, is Smile movies. Huge fan. The feeling of anxiety and the one individual yourself and how it can get pushed in your surroundings and everything, and that sort of can kind of feel the feeling of where this internal thing that becomes like where it just kind of eats you and to then until you break,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. I feel that's those, especially to the main characters from both of those, I really felt like well done. And then lastly is It Follows. Love that film to death. It is probably by far one of my all-time favorite modern horror films. Not only is the soundtrack fantastic, but what they did as far as in both the cinematography and then how they shaped this, well, I guess you could say a demon, but the way is just the simplicity of like using a certain walk and the stare that it would give, and the things that how you can use like the regular realism environment and elements sort of shaped this, like I don't want to say perfect, but it just created this perfect environment that you can easily connect with, but it has its own layers and everything on top. Love that film to death, and I would say all of those films really played an inspiration. And then lastly, I'm a huge Churches fan, so their latest album, as far as they focus on horror films as the theme for the album. So I listened to that album like 50 million times. So I was like in their top like percentile of Spotify Wrapped at the end of
Yeah.
the year because I just had that album on repeat when I was writing. So,
Huh. That's a pretty solid list. You guys are some true horror fans.
oh yeah,
And I was talking to Georgia about this in her interview. She was talking about how you guys did a private screening for the cast with the film Ex Machina.
yep,
And I love that. That's such a great way to get the cast in the mood of
yep,
the film and a good, just to show like what Wake Up Dolores is inspired by and what you should take inspiration from.
yeah,
That's a
100%.
really great cast bonding activity too. So,
Yeah, no, that's exactly why. Like, I wanted that. I wanted them to like, if there's anything that we need as a means of at least choosing a project for inspiration to use as something as inspiration. I always felt like using another film kind of helps one to get into that
mm,
frame of mind. So yeah,
that's really sweet. I love that.
100%.
All right, next question.
But
How did the collaboration of Broken Spoke Film House help shape this project?
yeah, oh, and that's the thing. Like I will say, it's going back to when we first started with this film studio and everything. I think we've always made it from day one as an emphasis on collaboration. And honestly, as far as we would not be where we are because of how well we work and collaborate together.
Mhm.
And I think with, you know, how we all sort of have our own, like we have our similarities in what we love and are passionate about, especially to similarities in like film and various types of, art and stuff and shows. But at the same time, we complement each other very well. It's the, Jack is fantastic when it comes to like the wizardry of post production and sound and everything, and he does a fantastic job with working with the camera. And he has also a really creative mind as well. That's strong in both writing and storytelling and everything. And then Todd, same way, he does a fantastic job in post production, and he also has an acting background. And then he also too has does fantastic work with the camera, and so, and then of course on my side, I'm an actor, writer, and so on and so forth. So it kind of just, it's one of those things like we all have like some similar strengths, but then also too, we have ways as far as how we just mesh and know how to work together.
Mhm.
And then also too with, Zoe coming on, and she's been a huge addition both in the writing, and then of course been a huge help as far as in the sound production or sound editing. So it's just been just the combination of us all. It's been a huge impact. And so for this project, especially because we have such a love and passion for horror, and then, how well and everything that as far as things went with Who Invited the Robots, we're able to kind of translate that and then taking this sort of idea and then putting into these the factors and everything in our behavior that we do well together is sort of molding this story and growing it out to now not just a regular one-time short film project, but then even to growing or adding these other side parts. So you got the Ashemira commercial, you got the Afterlife presentation, Click commercial, like all of these sort of creative little supporting projects to create this world. I don't, the definitely I would not have been able to do it on my own. It had to be a collaboration for us all to do it together and to make this full universe and build these like supportive stories to create Wake Up Dolores. And then also too, a lot of the things that you'll see as far as like sound, music, especially us collaborating with music was so amazing. To just be able to create the soundtrack that we did. Honestly, like I even like surprised myself because I was like, oh, because they're like they have a fantastic music background,
Mhm.
and then myself, like I love music, but I've never created. And but when we worked together in the lab, so to speak, we just created this like beautiful, like dark, not dark, but yeah, like a little dark, but like some like music that kind of like just it just makes you feel like tense and
Yeah.
yeah. And so like these are the things like we just kind of inspire each other and bring out like a lot of our creativity out. And I think that's kind of what really helps just in general, like when we work together, this is how we create these
Mhm.
awesome projects and everything. So yeah, I think this is especially to the music part and story, the feel with horror and sci-fi and everything, and just has all of our passions mixed together. And I think definitely would not have been able to do it without our collaboration together.
I love that you guys are all so different, but are so similar in the same way, and you all bring something so important to the team and to this world you're building that like you're just building such a detailed and an incredible world that could really go anywhere and is also
Mhm.
so important with what's going on in society today. And I just love how well you guys all work together and how supportive you guys are. And it's just a really great team you guys have all built.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely appreciate that. It's a good observation too.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Okay, I have one more question for you.
Cool.
What do you hope audiences take away from Wake Up Dolores after watching the film?
Awesome. Yeah, that's it. I just want
Awesome.
that's all I'm gonna say. Edward's awesome. Great. One
Yeah.
clap and then walk out. No, no, to be no, to be serious though, like I think like there's obviously the part where yes, I want people to sort of like think about obviously what's happening in real life right now, with AI and whatnot, and how it's rapidly becoming more and more ingrained into our society, our work, and so on and so forth. And now, of course, into creativity. and everything else. I think we're also to what I've always been this kind of adamant on the side of when we think with all of this, think of as far as individualism. Think of as far as what we are, as far as and what makes us, and what sort of like our surroundings and everything. And I've always kind of thought of it in the sense of like with using awareness as part of the context, not only as far as with Dolores, but with Megan and Ava, is how they all have their own individualism. They all have their own like certain beliefs and hopes, but they have also to their connections. And so how they are as an individual robots in one way of saying, but they are as far as their own unique character, but they still connect with each other. There is a manner of in a sort of a sibling bonding and everything, and that's how it shaped them because of Dolores being the oldest and having the weight of having to be a role model, being someone who that Ava looks up to, and of course her differences with Megan, but they have their own dynamic. But yet you'll see that's how Megan also too like has care and love, but in her own way because of how she is and how she shows it. And I, in a way, when reflecting and like, it's a lot of that I see with friends, strangers, and family and loved ones and everything. So you see that as well. You see how everyone is kind of molded and then sort of what we go through and think of it as like the building blocks of what we put together is from, who we interact and everything sort of creates us so to speak. And sometimes in our set, for us as humans, it takes us years. But if we think about it in a robot sense, they could do it in months. Like they can process information and be able to build out their own building blocks or their own selves. And so I find that was kind of really fascinating. And that was kind of something I wanted to put into the story and with these characters, especially, is to think of them as these individuals and what shapes them is very similar environments as us and
Mm-hmm.
what we are, and not to forget that. I think that's kind of the biggest thing because you'll see they go through what they go through is still what makes them still. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying again. I almost like gave it away. It's like,
Yeah.
oh.
I love that like even though they're robots, they're doing everything that humans are doing as well. Like they're taking everything from their environment and they're learning it and it's changing them as a person. And even though it's happening at a faster pace than a human would, um,
Right.
it's still very much like finding the human within them, which is scary, but also
Yeah.
so beautiful at the same time, how us humans develop and change over time. And it's just seen at a faster speed in this film. I'm just,
Correct.
it's really, really
'Cause
cool.
yeah, and like and then in the sense of they can take and process things much quicker. Like for us, sometimes there's things that we have to like
Yeah, we,
learn several lessons before it finally clicks. And then we're like, oh, yeah, I should probably stop doing that
yeah.
or so on and so forth. But like for them, they're able to like because then they're like, oh yeah, lessons learned, boom. And then they learn and move forward. But that's kind of the thing. And no matter what, they still keep their individualism. And
Right.
that's kind of the thing goes back to for us is what makes us as individuals and who we are and what shaped us. Not to forget that, not to lose that at all.
But wouldn't it be nice if we made a mistake and we learned from it the first time? Like,
Yeah,
wouldn't
and then able to
yeah, move on, right? That
move
would
on,
be
dude. It
great.
never happens again because
Yeah,
you're yeah.
you're just a perfect person. It would just be so nice.
Never would happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah, that would be amazing. I love that. Like,
right.
I still have my moments where I'm like, yeah, I still do the same thing I did 10 years ago.
Yep,
Did not learn. Did not
exactly.
learn.
Always. And I think that's just, I also think that's what makes you so special is, you make a mistake and then you make the same mistake and then you make the same mistake, but
Like,
you know what? You're human. It's bound to
it's
happen.
human.
So,
That's the only difference.
mhm,
That's
exactly.
the human part. We just keep doing the same thing
Yep, exactly. Over and over. Yep.
over and over.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. It was so great chatting with you about
Oh
Wake
yeah,
of Dolores. I'm so excited to see, well, I'm so excited for everyone to see all of your hard work up on the big screen.
thank you.
And good luck with all the festivals. And I
Yes,
can't wait
thank
to
you.
get all the updates about that. It's going to be amazing. So,
Oh.
make sure to follow Broken Smoke Filmhouse for more behind the scenes interviews and updates about the film. And thank you so much, Dan.
Yeah, thank you as well, Emily. Awesome. Yeah, always great to chat. Appreciate it.